Hello folks and welcome. So this is another video in the series of backups. I did a video earlier that should be uploaded roughly about the same time as this one with fully automated backups, a little bit more advanced concepts. In that video there, I showed how to do fully automated backups to an internal hard drive, for instance. In this video here, I'm going to be talking about using graphical rsync to copy that on an external device, and also talk about how to write script files. So I will say welcome folks, filming in 1920 by 1080. This is Zorin OS 17, released around December of 2023. You are watching this on Linux for Seniors. You can subscribe if you like. So I'm going to talk about this device here. So I've got a couple of folders, and we're going to do script files, copying stuff into there. Or we can also use graphical rsync to do the same. So I'm going to wipe the drive clean and open up Grsync. Graphical rsync. In my other video with more advanced concept, I was using regular rsync. And essentially it uses the same command here, except this does one thing at a time. Rsync can be found in your software store. You can install it. Grsync is graphical rsync. Rsync is already installed on your system. So if you haven't seen my video on the advanced concepts where I was doing fully automated backups, doing this kind of stuff, these folders are automatically created when I log in and synced up. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about basic concepts and creating script files. We're going to start with Grsync though. This is graphical rsync. It does one thing at a time. So keeping the basic options is what you see here. You are probably good to go with most things. Then I'll also talk about deleting files on the USB device. So we're going to first talk about source. We need something to copy. So let's find a source, which in this case is documents, and we're going to hit open. It puts the full name of the path. So our user for today is Zman. Now it's going to copy Zman to where? Well, we want this device. So let's click open and choose that device and hit open. You don't have to type in any of that stuff. And then just hit the play button. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. Shall I open up two things? Why not? So I'm going to do another window. So you can see what happens when I start deleting files. So one thing about Grsync that a lot of people don't realize, it's a little smarter than you dragging and dropping files. You can certainly do that. You can certainly go to your home folder and drag and drop these on your USB devices. Now, rsync looks at the timestamp on all of these files and folders and compares them with what's already here when you hit the play button. If the file, in this case here, hasn't changed over here, then rsync is not going to waste its time to sync that up. If the file here has been altered, it knows that by this timestamp, then it'll sync it up. If the file hasn't changed, it ignores it and it doesn't waste the time of syncing. That's what makes this faster the second time around, a little faster than you drag and drop. So what do you think will happen when I do this? Nothing, because it's already done its job. It has nothing to do, in other words. But I'm going to talk about a couple of different concepts that you can think about. Now, there's a reason that these are off by default, and I've been asked this question I don't know how many times over the years, is why doesn't this thing have this on automatically? Or why doesn't any graphical rsync program want to delete on destination? That's because a lot of people like to preserve the files and not have it delete in case you delete something by accident. Let me give you an example of this. I'm going to create a folder. We'll call it hello, what do we got there? 4? We'll call it 5. I've created a folder. I'll grab one of these things and I'll copy it. So we'll have something to do, right? So I made a copy of this PDF and I created another hello something. All right. So what I'm going to do is first leave the regular options on. So right now I've got 4 folders and X amount of files, exactly the same. They're identical currently. All right. So what happens is the user inadvertently deletes something by accident. Maybe one file, maybe a folder. I'll do test 5. Here, I'm going to get rid of that. So now we have some things here. And as I sync this back up, nothing happens over here. So what do you think the purpose of this would be for? Well, that's in case I deleted those by accidents. They're now available for me to restore over here. That's what this is for. But then you have other users that say, I want this folder to be an exact copy here. Then you want this option. Delete on destination literally means that. It will make your source, this, be identical to this, your destination, including deleting files. When I hit the play button here, it will make these exactly like these. That includes if you, not that you say you're going to do this, but if you create files here on the destination device, I'll create a folder. We'll call it test and a bunch of 8s. And then I'll create another folder here. And we'll call that test and a bunch of 9s. All right, and I'm going to click over here and we're going to rerun that with a delete on. So what that's going to do is it's going to rsync the documents folder here over to here. And when you have this on, it's going to remove any files that's not here. So that means it'll delete test 888 and it'll replicate test 99. It'll probably look like it replaced this, but test 88 is about to go away when I do this. It's gone. It's Casper. All right, so this is an exact match on both sides. So far so good? Okay, now we're talking one thing at a time here. Unlike script files, you can do multiple things. We'll talk about that next. New source, let's find something else. How about pictures? The complete folder, in other words. And we're going to sync that up to the same device. Done. So you can see it's taking time. So what happens when I hit the play button again? It's faster. The initial sync up takes the longest. If you don't change anything from these folders, it has nothing to do. But as soon as you delete something or add something, depending on how this is set, it will either be match set or it'll sync forward. So right now I have it set to delete. That means it's going to delete that T1 when I hit the play button. If I didn't want that to happen, I would need to turn that off. Okay, but you do that before you sync. So this is Grsync in a nutshell. One source to one destination at a time. I'm using very simple options today. Delete on destination is probably the most used or most, how do I put the language, most misunderstood setting. Because a lot of people are assuming that when the default is on, that it's going to make a match set. It does not. It copies forward. You have to tell it to delete on destination. This is the default option, by the way. You have to do that if you want them file for file, folder for folder. I'm going to switch gears now. In my advanced video, I showed how to actually replicate this on auto logins. Today, I'm going to use the exact same file, except I'm going to do this manually and show you how to actually create the script file itself. These were the exact same files I used on my previous video, except we're just going to do this with this device here. And we're going to wipe this clean. So your standard text editor, right click, create new, okay, creates a TXT. And if you open that up, your standard text editor is this. You can certainly use that. This is called gedit. You don't create script files with a word processor. You also don't leave it with TXT either. You name them with single names. And you also have to convert them. Okay, in other words, properties, permissions, and allow that to be run as a program. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to use a different text editor. You can certainly install that yourself also. It's called Kate. You can find it in your software store. So with Kate, I'm going to open this up with Kate. All right, The reason I'm doing that so I can make this larger for you so you can see what's on the screen. These are exactly the same as my previous advanced video. But I'm going to break it all down for you today. For new users, for new folks that are trying to write scripts. Your other locations, this is your Zorin file system. This is the bin directory or bin folder. It's a link, but nonetheless it's bin. I'm going to open it. Then I'm going to scroll down to the B's where it says bash. I'm not bashing anything, it's called Born Again Shell. That says bin bash. That's the location generally found on a lot of Linux distributions or where Born Again Shell is located. So what does that stuff mean? Let me break it down for you. How do you produce these two symbols? Hold down your shift key and press the number 3 on your upper row of your keyboard. It produces a pound symbol. Then hold down the control key and press 1. It produces an exclamation point. There is no space, so don't put a space in here. Look for the /. That's normally possibly on your keyboard with a question mark / found next to the left of your right shift key near your enter /. Then type in bin / again bash. There are no spaces in this line. This is called a bin bash statement, and that's required for a script file. The next one is, what is Rsync? Rsync is remote sync. It's a very powerful tool. It is found on just about every Linux distribution under the hood. There's a lot of backup programs or utilities that also use Rsync under the hood when you download certain backup programs. I'm doing this manually. The next one is, I'm going to actually turn this off. So the -A is the archive option, which is also very powerful, and there are lots of options for Rsync. So it's Rsync, lowercase letters, 1 space -A is the archive option. Why am I using the VH part, this part here? The VH part allows me to display the file names if I'm using slow devices like USB drives, for instance. Usually when you're using fast hard drives, you probably won't even notice it. The VH just allows me to display the file names in a terminal box. You'll see that happening here. Put a space, and then what does this tilde mean? The tilde just means it's your home folder and username. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hit Control L as in Larry and toggle that so you can see what that's the actual path. It says home zman, that's our user for today, it's just a made up name. Instead of me typing all that stuff, I type in a tilde. The / documents / you can probably guess. Now I'm going to tell you something about Rsync and script files in general. Rsync is looking for the name of the folder and it wants to find it exactly the way you have it. So if your folder name, as in this case, has my junk in it with an uppercase M and the junk part with an uppercase J, you better spell it that way. If you put a small m in here, your script will fail. It will not replicate this line. It won't even give you an error. All you see is the folder missing. Be very careful about stuff like that. Linux is literal. Rsync needs to find the name of your source by the exact name. This part is called destination. This is the meat of the sandwich if you want to be funny about it. But if I point to that, the black box says Media Zman USB back on it. That's what this says. In here, I want 1 space. That is not correct. Rsync can't discern between your source and destination with no spaces. You need 1 space. I've heard people want to put 2 spaces. Whatever floats your boat, I like 1 space. Okay, this is not right. This is. So now Rsync can find your source and clearly discern the destination. Let me show you a cheater's way to get this into here without typing. Click that. You see that line there? Hit Control L. It toggles that over and you can right click and copy that. I'll put it on line 7. Hit Control V and there it is. Then you can take that and paste that into this section right here. All right, just a little tip instead of you hand typing that, because whenever you hand type the destination device, there is a slight chance of a typo. You notice that when I did copy that though, that it only has, I'm going to do another one, that it stops and doesn't type a folder name. Well, my suggestion to you is to create your own folder names. Now I got this, it's going to say documents going to docs. This is perfectly acceptable because Rsync needs to find your folder, it needs to sync it to that device, but then you can call it whatever you want and it creates that folder on that device here. In other words, the USB device in this case. So that's why my junk is actually just called junk down here. That's perfectly acceptable. This has to be spelled correctly for Rsync to find it, but for it to sync, it's going to create a folder in this case because of a /. Now what is this --delete? Well, I'm going to open up GR for a second. I'm going to point to something to you. You remember when I was making the discussion on that? Take a look at that black box. What does it say? It says --delete on it. Okay, deletes files on destinations which are not present in the source. In other words, this is going to delete files in here based on what's in here. It syncs these over to here, but if you had removed files earlier and you reran this script, it will delete them in here. That's all that means. If you don't put the --delete, it only syncs forward all the time. It never deletes anything in that folder, or this folder, or any other folder for that matter. Okay? Standard file. And again, another tip for you, grab a hold of this, copy it. I'm just going to do this on line 7, but pretend that's line 3. And you hit paste. You can actually do several of these if you like. Hit the enter key, Control V, enter key, Control V. Don't leave it that way though. I'm just saving you time for typing the front end. You need to edit this part here. It's very important that you don't have the same lines constantly replicating each other. So this part needs to be changed and this part needs to be changed, and you don't have to type the rest of the middle of the sandwich, as they call it. You're replicating one folder at a time and they need to be different. You're in here, if you leave this script just like this, it'll keep replicating the same thing over and over again. You don't want that. All I'm showing you is a different way to do shortcuts. All you do is edit the ends, the back end and the front end. Don't forget about that if you decide to do the copy and paste method. Other than that, hand type it in. You can leave the VH out or not, and this is what it's going to do. I'm going to do a discard because I was playing with the file, and go find my script file. And that script file is currently located right here. That was the file that I was just editing. Sorry, wrong one. That's the automated one. This one right here. Pardon me. Because that I can tell that by the destination device. This is Kate. Kate's kind of nice about this. Every time you highlight the same amount of text, it turns everything, it should turn it yellow if it's highlighted properly. So now I know all these matches. All right, anyways, let me run that with a blank this is a USB hard drive. So I'm going to run this, and what you're going to see is a terminal box with files presented in here. That's the VH part of the script of the archive. -A VH displays file names. Okay, it'll auto close. I'm going to edit this to let you see what happens when you strip off the VH part. Okay, so basically I'm going to do that. Actually, I'm just going to grab a hold of that and do a Control X. That might work a little faster. Anytime you do stuff like that, you always check your spacing. I'm going to save the file, and I'm going to let you see what it does without the VH part now. Since I've already got these in, I'm going to give the script something to do, so it's going to have to re-replicate these. and I'll run them, and all you'll see is a blank terminal box with a blinking cursor, and you'll see these being created. It'll just sit there and blink until it's finished. You probably want to see that, but maybe not. That's all up to you. If your storage device has a nice LED on it, you can just watch it blink. Okay, so I'm going to put those back to give you that example. Again, I'm going to go back in here and paste the VH part back in on all the lines. Okay, it takes me longer to explain a lot of this, but I think it's important to understand. So we're going to give this thing something to do again. Again, it won't replicate unless if the files are already there. So let's rerun that, and now you can see the files being displayed. There is a caveat to this though. I'm going to first let that finish. You should never interrupt the script when it's doing its job. So once it finishes, I'm going to show you a little trick that it won't display that terminal box if you put a link on your desktop. So basically that's the script file. I talked about this one in my advanced video, but this one here is again designed for that. And I'm going to create a link on it. So it creates a link. I'm going to drag it onto my desktop, and I'm going to minimize that. So all this is a link to this script file right here. You can even see the name of it. And I'm going to minimize that. And I'm going to delete these again and give it something to do. This time, whether I close it or leave it open, if I close it, you won't see anything happening, but I'm going to leave it open for you to see this. It will not display a terminal box on this distribution of Zorin 17. Okay, all you're seeing is that it's creating folders. A lot of distributions behave a little differently from desktop to desktop sometimes, and distribution to distribution, when you're using the same kind of files. As an FYI. My LED stopped blinking on this device. That's how I know it's done. If I delete these files, you can see them gone. I'll close the file manager. I'm not going to do an undo, and I'm going to rerun this from here, and you won't see a thing. All I know is it's blinking right now. I will now open this back up and let you see that it's in the middle of creating. It doesn't matter if I minimize, you're not going to see a terminal box if I run it this way. This may be a preferred thing with some. Again, just be aware of that. Or you may want to run these script files directly from your file manager, so you don't have to look at any extra files on your desktop. So these script files also have to have an attribute on after you write them to allow that to be ran as a program. If you leave this off and you try to run these, sorry, wrong file, let me fix that. It was this one. They're both script files, but I'll turn this one off and let you see what happens when I right click on it. There is no run button in here. As soon as you open that, it just goes into a text editor. There's nothing for me to run in here. The magic happens when you do this. Now you'll find a run button right here. Then you can run it. And you can visually see the files. So that's a script file. In my advanced video, I showed how to do this in an automated fashion. It will replicate these automatically during login, because there's a special hidden file in this folder, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. So that was writing a script file. And again, the beauty of writing a script file is you can add more rsync lines, as many as you want, if you are creating more folders. If you change the device name or add an extra USB drive, then you'll have to rewrite these. The part in here, the middle of the meat, if you want to call it that, in the sandwich, you have to match that up to the name of the device. So in this case, it's this one here. That has to match. Control L, Media Zman USB back is what this needs to say to be able to sync up documents to that folder, for instance. Okay, I know I kind of made a mess of things, but more importantly, there we go. 25 minutes. I think I'm going to call it good. Hopefully you've got good information, and you can also check out my advanced video. Thank you for watching.